What will Hape Beast get to pre-reveal? Let's jump in and check out my Hape Beast price prediction. Now look, I'm going to kick off and say that you need to do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor, and don't take these as calls. This is just a little bit of fun when it comes to looking back at past projects and just almost to see if I can draw the line that Hape Beast will actually hit getting to reveal. Now, one important aspect before kicking off that I want you to be aware of is that they're giving qualified members 5 days to mint the collection. So there's no benefit to actually getting in earlier because they are kind of doing a true randomization when it comes down to it. Now, this means that's 5 days of minting. This means 5 days of hype build up that will continuously happen and that will continuously build. So please take that in mind when I kind of run these estimates. It's not launching and releasing the next day. Hype is actually going to build over days and days. Now, the first metric that I want to run off is the Genesis Hape floor. Now, if you own a Genesis, you're actually able to mint a Hape. So the idea that this was actually a ticket to mint a Hape. So when we actually have a look at the floor, now the floor says 42.069, funny, but what we actually want to do is have a look at the true floor. Now we can see the past sales, sort of 30, 29, 36, 42, 30, 32. So the idea that we're kind of sitting between that sort of it's essentially sitting at this sort of 30 to 35 mark. So if we run off 30 as a conservative estimate for what the Hape Genesis collection is, we can then break it down into a half and a quarter to kind of see a price range of where we think this should be. Now, the reason that I think it won't ever reach this Genesis stage is because you will be able to hold on to the Genesis and you will be able to mint the Hape. So I do believe that there will almost be a halving of the price at the maximum aspect, down to around a quarter. So when we break this down, we end up with 15 and 7.5. So the price range that I'm kind of getting at is this 7.5 to 15 ETH mark. Now, the next metric that I'm looking at is the Santa Hape. Now, the Santa Hape, this is a special one because it was actually auctioned off. So everyone had a chance. It wasn't a matter of people holding up the floor and someone being desperate. This is actually an auction. So it's what people were willing to pay on a fair market, and that sold for 32 ETH. So that plays into the fact that if we take 32, split it in half, we get 16, split that in half, we get 8. So with the fair market value, we're getting this between 8 and 16 mark. So I do believe this 7 to 16 ETH mark is a nice range to kind of play in when it comes down to Hape Beast pre-reveal. Now, the price prediction is going to be heavily based off Mechaverse because Mechaverse had a very similar hype level, and I actually referenced this in a previous video. You can actually check out the previous video up here, but this video is the updated version. Now, with Mechaverse, we can actually see the run up that it had, and it actually kind of peaked out at around that 8 ETH mark. It's saying that the average was around that sort of 7.8. It then went down and dipped up again on the reveal. And then after that, it kind of just dropped off quite heavily. Now, I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen. We're only looking at up until that pre-reveal mark and see what will happen with Hapes there, because it comes down to the team actually executing on the roadmap. Having a look at the price, what I've done here is I've got a beautiful chart. This is where I believe we will be running. I think we will start off at this around 6 mark, then instantly it'll run up to around that 8 mark. It will then dip back down and it will travel back down. I think it will hit the 4 and then it will kind of start to rise back up steadily. I think it will keep running up until we get to around that 10 ETH mark. It'll kind of bounce around here and then down. Then in the last final days, before we kind of get to the reveal and the public sale has finished, I think we will transition up and just kind of crab step our way up to around this sort of 12.5 to 15 ETH mark. Now look, this isn't to scale, but essentially I'm seeing it hit an 8, then around a 4, maybe sort of 4.5. I then see it kind of hitting some resistance at this 10 mark, 10 ETH. Then I do think it will kind of dip back down a little bit, maybe touch around the 9s, then upwards to the sort of around that 12 to 13 mark. Now, the reason that I say this is a trajectory that I see quite a lot when I look at the analysis of a project. We usually have people kind of come in, list. People will list their Hapes immediately. It will then kind of jump up and climb up. You will then have some people see it run up to 8 and be like, oh, this is crazy, I'm going to list. They then list, they then see it drop to 7, they see it drop to 6. They then kind of go, oh, this is just dropping I need to kind of let go because I want to catch the bottom. They then sell at sort of 6 or 5, thinking it's going to go down to 1 or 2. It'll then catch some support at around that sort of 4.5 mark. It'll then slingshot back up, and then people will be left kind of catching the hype. I do think 10 ETH will be a psychological barrier when it comes down to this, because it is a large number and it's a round number. So and then see it kind of tapering off because people think the excitement is gone, and then as we get closer to the reveal, it'll slowly start to kind of tick up, and then we hit around that 12 to 13 ETH mark. After we get to the reveal, it'll be too frothy and too crazy to kind of deal with, but looking at the kind of run up to the reveal, that's where I see it running. Now, some people will think that I am crazy, but when we have a look at something like Clonex, we can see that it kind of had a run up, a little bit of a dip down, and then a run up and peak again. So that is a sort of a trend that I've kind of seen there. And the fact that their floor price is sitting at around 6 ETH mark makes it seem like people are willing to kind of spend that money. And then when we just have a look at some of the price floors of some of these top blue chip projects, we can see World of Women is sitting at sort of almost that 7.5 ETH mark. Mutant Ape, 15 ETH. Doodles, we're sitting at almost a 10 ETH mark. Cool Cats, we're sitting at 11 ETH. Now, I guess what I'm saying here is there's enough money going around, and the price of ETH has recently dropped. So it means that I think we are going to see higher floor prices, because in fiat value, it may be the same as previous predictions or quite high, but the fact that ETH is lower, I think we're going to see higher ETH prices, but essentially similar fiat value prices. So this was just a bit of a fun video about where I think this sort of price trajectory can go. What I'm going to do is I'm essentially going to screenshot this, keep this image, and then when it actually does run out and play out, I'm just going to overlay this and see how close I was to the mark. This is just a bit of fun. This is not advice. You should kind of weigh up your risk tolerances if you do want to get into a project like this, or you are in on the project and you do want to exit the project. I wanted to do this as a little bit of fun. This is almost just like going to the races and putting some money on horse number 2 because you think the name is fun. Now, the other reason why this is fun is this is essentially trying to front run the psychology of the market. If I can front run the psychology of the market, it gives me a little bit more trust in myself. If this is completely wrong, that's fine. I don't care if Hape runs up to 15 or 20, or if it kind of sits around that 5 ETH mark. Full disclosure, I am on the Hape list, so I am going to be in on this project, and that's why this is additionally fun for me, because I can then wonder about where it could go and where profits could be taken. So overall, I hope you found value in this video. If you please consider hitting that subscribe button, and while you're down there, also hit up that like button. As always, it's been a pleasure having you with me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Oh.